Hi there. Ooh, forgot to take off the cover. Welcome to Laura's Painted Minis. I'm Laura and I'm a little tired. I had a busy weekend. Running a bunch of one shots for some people at my church. And I didn't really have anything else prepped other than all of these terrain pieces from the Elven Woods set from Dungeons and Lasers. So we're gonna work on these. I'm also gonna be trying out my new wet palette. It's the fancy. It's Red Grass Games, or just that is the company that it's from. When I first started getting into mini painting, I had done like DIY versions basically, and then I ended up getting a well palette instead. So yeah, this will be interesting. It's been a long time since I've done anything on any sort of a wet palette, so should be fun. Let's see, let's get to where I was. I started doing this for a Patreon video, and then I just kind of focused on minis that I was needing for the one shots that I was running. I feel like especially for how I do stone textures, this will work out really well using a well palette or wet palette. Just be a matter of getting used to it again, since I've been doing a well palette. And I'm just kind of going back over this side a little bit, just because I've noticed I think may have slightly different mixes than what I did, which is probably partially due to using the wet palette, because last time I used the well palette, so there's a little bit less control. I did have a lot of fun running my Harry Potter themed one shot, kind of based off of the maze in the Triwizards tournament, loosely. The maze itself, just the idea of a maze, um, was the main thing. That was the same. And then there was a list of tasks they had to try to complete and try to complete first against imaginary teams, obviously. I did have one group try and take on the basilisk, so that was a lot of fun. One of the party members ended up getting petrified, although I think with Harry Potter, I think if you're going off of like D&D conditions, then it would that's not quite the right condition to use, because with petrified in D&D you're being turned to stone, which with this petrified with the basilisk, you're specifically getting paralyzed because of from the indirect gaze of the basilisk eyes, or however you want to describe that, seeing its eyes indirectly. There we go. And they do have, with the homebrew rules that I was using, there are rules for making potions, and so I did include that. Technically, like, was one of the tasks anyway, and so came up with some mechanics for finding ingredients. So on top of the ingredients they needed to find, if they chose that task, they also ended up needing to find ingredients for mandrake draught, restorative draught, however you say that. To help unpetrify their fellow classmate. It did help that they had tamed a griffin. And I know technically by D&D rules that they're untamable, but I'm wasn't doing straight D&D, so I made it the rule that basically they could be tamed. I did specify, because both groups asked, that it was just would become friendly towards them, but not necessarily be wanting to be ridden. Because I'd not really thought through how to handle them being able to fly around and stuff. Specifically with the griffin. I thought a little bit if they had summoned their brooms, because some of them did have Accio prepared. / I gave them a few of them Accio prepared. So but none of them actually thought of doing the route of Harry Potter movie and do Accio broom. So I didn't have to worry about that. Or rather, I never had to actually do much work with that or actually apply what I was thinking, I guess, would happen. Basically, I was just going to make it where the hedges were going to be way taller and it would be a waste of time for them to fly up. There were some things I learned I needed to tweak, mostly with some wording and placement of things on the map. Because both groups actually ended up staying all on one side of the map, which I was not expecting. So, yeah. And I'll have to come up with a different riddle for next year. Slash, and like basically a different magic item that they need to find as one of the tasks. Shouldn't say need. I made it so that like they had a choice of which tasks they could attempt. And they only needed to complete 3. Their first group was overachievers and went for the basilisk, even though they already completed 3. I have a feeling that was just like a little bit of nerding out and being like, oh my gosh, this is Harry Potter. We gotta check out the basilisk. And then that became a bad idea. I gotta say, for this specific application where, I mean, I'm essentially doing a type of wet blending anyway, I really do like having the wet palette. Which I'm glad. I was a little worried that I was gonna get a nice wet palette and then be like, nope, don't like it. as I mentioned, I did do a focus tutorial video as well as a PDF earlier this summer on how I do rock or stone textures, and essentially the recipe. My recipes would probably work better if you have a well palette. I got a little bit splatchy there. I think I had too much water in my brush. Let that dry a little bit. So if you are interested in some more focused tutorials than what I do here on stream, since sometimes I'm chatting about with other people or just about random things, whatever comes to mind. The videos on my Patreon are going to be much more focused. I actually purposely don't have me mic'd up, just because I'm so used to just kind of randomly chatting. I did try once and I just get off topic because I'm so used to just randomly chatting here on Twitch. So I am not mic'd up on my Patreon videos for that purpose of keeping it focused on showing you. So the videos are very much me doing the best I can to give you showing you step by step. I try, well, not just try, I don't cut and edit and whatnot, even though it could make it look nicer, but a lot of the people that I notice, a lot of artists who do that also then end up cutting out the whole process, or a lot of the process. And for me, that was something that was really hard, trying to watch videos and learn, and basically all that was really ending up in the video was a recipe and say, hey, do this, and then do that, and then do this, when mini painting really is never that straightforward, especially when you get into more complicated aspects. There's a lot of going back and forth, and between your paint colors, fine-tuning things as you paint it. It's not as simple as just like, oh, right here, use this color, and right here, use this color. Like, every mini is going to be a little bit different because of the way things are sculpted. If you're trying to do like light type techniques, especially, it's just not that simple. So then those videos kind of just become more of like a different mix of paints that you can use rather than really getting into the process. And again, I fully understand like why some um, painters do that. I mean, for some of them, maybe they're just making a YouTube video to get you to go to their Patreon so that and get more of the details from their Patreon. Because that is kind of my experience is people's YouTubes. I do appreciate the artists that I follow a lot, and I'm on their Patreon of Painting Big. They do do some really good like fundamental videos, and have been doing kind of a series on fundamentals and really getting into like the nitty-gritty of those. It's definitely like as I've seen them come out, and like, man, I wish this was out when I was first starting. These would have been super helpful. But hey, if you're just starting out, that's good news for you because they are out. So, I mean, I think you can just Google or go on YouTube and search Painting Big. So also from this weekend, I learned that I do not like having to do pre-made one-shot modules. The ones that I had, I mean, they look, I feel like they are probably decently designed. It's just with the way that my brain works. I totally think they were worth money. There's some really good details on story and everything. I just struggled figuring out how to necessarily make things work and how everything worked played together. Whereas with like the Harry Potter based one shot, I was using some just general rules that someone else had made, and I made up my own setting and to use those rules in, basically my own story, jumping off point for the players. I do have some ideas of what I want to do next. Specifically thinking of like the minis that I'm gonna be getting whenever my Reaper Bones box gets here. I totally understand why they haven't gotten a ton out yet, just because of ReaperCon and then all the shipping delays. The ReaperCon's over, so I'm hoping fulfillment will speed up and I'll get my box. But yeah, so one idea in particular is like, and I'm sure someone's already done something like this before as far as the setting goes or story, but kind of storming Dracula's castle. I'm kind of using a bit of the original story from Bram Stoker, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. I remember there being like a mini that very much looked like Nosferatu. And then there's the whole expansion of the Solon Hall expansion, or add-on, I guess is what they call it. We're calling them add-ons, power-ups, or whatever. Which I got. I got most of the expansions or add-ons because it was my first big Reaper Kickstarter, and we don't have that many of the Reaper minis. So that was kind of a lot of fun to be able to jump in on that one. I know we already have quite a few undead minis now because we've been running Curse of Strahd, but it'll be fun. It's mainly just a lot of zombies and a few vampires, handful of vampires here and there as far as what we have. So that will really make it round out our collection if I'm going to do more of a Dracula's Castle one shot or something. And I was doing a little searching here and there on the DM's Guild. Not necessarily for actual one shots already made, as I mentioned already that I determined I don't like those. That they probably are not for me. Just the way my brain works. But it was just something to try. Last year, I mean, technically, I just took parts of a campaign module and then tweaked them into multiple one shots. So I had not ever experienced really actually using a pre-made one shot before. So it was an experience and I learned some things. There was also there was also some things I learned just in or continued to maybe have a better understanding of when I'm doing one shots and people aren't coming with their own characters made. I really need to make sure that they have very clear and readable sheets. So I am tempted to maybe, because I have Canva, to maybe go on there and make something for my own. When you get higher levels, it's definitely going to be where it gets harder because then there's just more and more to keep track of. But yeah, there was that was definitely the main problem with one of the one shots that I ran was that there was just so much to read and the way the fill-in printable D&D character sheet works is things get really, the font gets really tiny. And it's just really hard to read. It's very, like, not ideal. Not at all. And it also kind of made me think of, like, because I like to give, so my pre-generated characters and stuff, I still want to give them some cool things that they can do instead of just, like, being kind of boring characters. I mean, they can still be fun, I guess. Not everyone is all about the feats. But I usually give feats if, like, if the character is high enough that they would have gotten a ability improvement. I usually try and give them a feat that they can have. Make things interesting and flavor their characters a bit. I also need to remember to look at the villains more closely, because one of the characters I made for my first one shot also most of their spells were just one type, and that was kind of my bad. And it ended up being a type that they were immune to, which I kind of made up for by just making the villain go into melee, and so that they can actually do something. But yeah, not ideal situation. It's not the kind of thing that you want to. You want your players to be able to feel like they can do something to help. So that wasn't great on my part. They technically had at least one spell that could have done other things to it, but they had already. It was like specifically a level 2 spell, and they already used up their level 2 slots by that point. So yeah, there were some things I learned. I also had forgotten my spell cards first night, so there were a lot of having to look up online for them, or help them find them. I mean, it wasn't just me. There were others too with their phones who were used to looking up stuff on D&D Beyond and stuff, helping out. But that did take time. Then I also was like realizing the next day when I did remember that I need to bring them, that I should have looked through those to begin with and had those ready, so that I knew for a fact that if all 6 spots had been filled, that they'd all have cards to use. Because then we ran into that, where the next day, multiple people had the same spell, but I didn't necessarily have enough copies of the same spell. I had some copies because of having multiple different spell decks or spell cards, because I've got the general arcane spells. And I've got Bard, Paladin, and Cleric. And then there's the Martial and Races deck. So that took up a bunch of time. However, then they raced through that one shot, because that was the one where a player misread or misunderstood a feat, and I don't blame them. I mean, it was really tiny. They're probably just trying to really quickly read things. Not just probably. You are. There's very little time to beat. You can't like have them sit there for 20 minutes reading through their character sheet. Um, there's really only enough time to give them like a few minutes. So We almost finished it. And after running the Harry Potter based one shot, I don't know if I actually would use these. I had some of the elven trees, or some of the trees from the elven woods, and even those were a bit much to make work. I did have some rocks too that my husband had. I don't know where he got them. So it's possible some of these smaller ones would work, and just use these instead of those rocks that I had used. I don't know, but I still want to get these painted up because, like, they're cool. I do want to do sort of a fae or like slash fairy tale type one shot too. Again, thinking of like the minis I'm going to be getting from the Bones 6 box. Once that I get my email, I can get that. Sweet. So we almost got it done. That's where the first one was. So pretty close getting done. So yeah, that's what we got done today. We got all this stone texture painted on to this piece. There's still some bits up here that you can see. So there's still a bit more to do, not just right here. And then I have like the whole set of the Elven Woods over there. This is the only one that I've even gotten anything other than primer on. So there's a lot more to do. Yeah, we'll see. I'll probably try and at least finish this specific piece out just so that I'm not doing stone texture for the next couple weeks on the stream, because that would get kind of boring real quick. Unless you really want me to do stone texture, in which case speak up, because that's not what I'm going to plan on. Yeah, so probably at least for the next stream, just try and finish this up so I'll get onto the grass, or I'm going to sort of paint it like it's moss a little bit. It's not quite sculpted that way, but that's the way I want to paint it. So we'll see if that is going to end up being a good idea or if that's just going to be frustrating because of slightly working against the way things are sculpted. We'll see. I can always pivot and just paint it like it's grass. I mean, moss is kind of grassy sometimes. Who knows? We'll make it work. Anyway, hope you're having a fun Labor Day Monday. I know there might not be very many of you watching because you're going to be out grilling or doing whatever you do for Labor Day. hopefully you don't have to work and you can get the day off and enjoy some nice weather, or at least it's nice here in Iowa. Yeah, I'll see you Thursday night at 8:30 p.m. Central. And again, if you are interested in some more focused tutorials, head on over to my Patreon, and there's some videos as well as PDFs available there. They're much more focused than what I do here. Anyway, see y'all Thursday. Bye.